Welcome back, guys. It is Kelsey again from the High Level Sports Podcast here on behalf of Billy Up Sports for the Fantasy Football Expo. This is part 2 of the recordings, the fun we're having down here. I am joined by a great group of guys yet again. I have the hostess with the mostest hat on yet again, so don't question me. I know what I'm doing some days. All right, guys. But no, seriously, it is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about, as we're at the Hall of Fame, next year's Hall of Fame class. We already have Antonio Gates in the hall. We already have Sterling Sharp. We have a bunch of great guys that came in this class. But next year is the generation we all grew up with. Next year is ones that we all have questions. So joining me yet again, let's recap everybody here. Jerry Clem from the Korner Booth, Matt Odaza from the Korner Booth, Vince Stover from the Stove Report. Sorry, Stove Podcast. You know what, man? It's just going to be what it is every time. I'm sorry. If you've ever seen a guy go red-faced, it's me, and it's not from just anything other than embarrassment.
Vince, you just gotta start fighting him at this point.
We put so much work into promoting our podcast, only to be trashed on by Kelsey every time he brings it up.
I'm telling you, just start fighting him. That's all you really have to do at this point. Just be like, you know what? $5 every time.
Instead of fighting, we'll start fighting. I'm a yellow belt, and we're gonna go after it later.
I will see your yellow belt, and I will raise you a DJ Stewart, my co-host.
DJ might just sit back and.
No, this one's on you, man.
Hey, you are a man of God, is all I have to say, and I feel like I should be fine. And I don't mean that because we're gonna fight. I mean that because you're a man of God.
So I'm gonna be nice, is what you're saying.
He'll just kick you right in the raspberries and walk away, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well,
look, you made the mistake twice. Now, if you make it a third time, it's a wrap.
That's right.
That's when the
I'll hold you down.
We're already August at this point. I've said it twice. It's already going to be a third time. I already guarantee I'm going to mess it up.
Wow.
So Vince from the Sports Stove Podcast. Yeah. There you go. I got it right the third time. But he also does all our fantasy football live, fantasy baseball live, and that's the important things we're here for fantasy football. That's no offense to your dad and the rest of your show. I do.
It's all good.
Actually love your show.
Thank you.
So still can't get the name right, but I do love your show. All right, but what I can get right is at least the 2026 draft eligible class. And like I said, guys, this is a class that you look at, and there's a lot of talented and a lot of great players coming in, and some that people think they belong, and they may or may not. But we'll talk about that. Eligible for this draft class, some notable names: Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Frank Gore, Jason Witten, Marquise Pouncey, Geno Atkins, Stephen Gostkowski. Yes, that's right. We have a kicker eligible. Phillip Rivers, will he make it in with Antonio Gates? Greg Olson, Todd Gurley, Julian Edelman, Thomas Davis, Mike Upati, Des Bryant, it was a catch, David DeCastro, and probably the one that might cause the most controversy, surprisingly, Shady, LeSean McCoy. Guys, do we want to start with the Band-Aid ripping off, or do we want to start with the guys that we believe are going to actually get into the Hall?
Let's start with the guys that need to be talked about.
All right, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off. I named him last because he's going to be causing controversy. He's already caused enough controversy, more so than me mispronouncing Vince's podcast.
Yeah, what's the name of my podcast again?
Sports Stove Podcast.
All right.
He read your shirt that time.
I literally can't read like that far away. I don't have my glasses on. But no, okay. So let's rip this Band-Aid off. Jared, you're going last. LeSean McCoy. Does he deserve to get in, yes or no? DJ, start.
So I want to make this very clear, too. This is their first opportunity. So this would be a first-ballot Hall of Famer right now. The only two people on this list that should be first ballots are Larry Fitzgerald and Drew Brees. Nobody else should be going in next year because there's some other backlogs as well. That's the catch with Hall of Fame. First ballots are reserved for guys like Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, etc. So as of right now, no, because I think with first ballot Hall of Fame, it's Hall of Fame, not Hall of really, really, really good. Usually those guys will get in later, but for first ballot, it's Drew Brees and Larry Fitzgerald.
Fair enough. Yes.
Yeah, I think first ballot guys, those two are the give-me's. They're going to be there. They're the ones that have to go in. I think there's arguments to be made for Witten and Rivers personally, where I would put them in on the first time, because I think when you look at the whole list of people, I still like them above these guys that are carryovers in a lot of ways too. So I got 4 guys going in, and could Shady make it? Sure. Right now, no. Because when you look at the other running backs that he was similar with stats-wise and things like that, they're not in yet. So why would Shady go in yet at this point too? Or, look at guys. Fred Taylor. Fred Taylor needs to go in before Shady McCoy goes in.
I agree. Fred Taylor should be in the Hall. I'll say that much. Matt, obviously, you work with an Eagles fan very closely. What are your thoughts on Shady? And mind you, whatever you say will not be held against you.
No, not until next Monday's show. I don't think McCoy is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Do I think he can get in down the road when you get maybe a lighter load of a class? Yes, I think there's a real possibility for that to happen. I think at this moment I definitely wouldn't put him as first ballot. But I do see at least 4 first ballots potentially getting in this coming year with Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald. I would even highlight Jason Witten could be a potential first ballot candidate. And then I'm also going Frank Gore. I'm saying at least definitely 3 with Gore, Fitzgerald, and Brees. And I think Witten could possibly be a 4th. But in regards to McCoy, I think if he's going to, it's going to take a couple of years or so until you get a lighter class for him to get in. But I just don't think it's going to be first ballot.
That's fair. That is a fair assessment. All right. Jared, I know you've been waiting for this one.
So, here's my thing. I would love for LeSean McCoy, who is one of my childhood favorite players, to get in. Yes, there's a little personal axe behind this, but I also understand there's really, like Vince said and DJ said, there's really only 2 surefire Hall of Famers. I almost said Shady. It's Larry Fitz and it's Drew Brees. Drew Brees, who I believe is still all-time passing touchdown.
He's 2. Tom passed him.
Yeah, I was going to say
yeah.
Tom Brady played for basically 3 decades, so I mean he was going to pass him eventually. Drew Brees and then Larry Fitzgerald, who was arguably one of the greatest receivers ever to walk the earth. Besides that, it's about 3 or 4 guys: the Philip Rivers, the Frank Gores, Marquise Pouncey, whatever you want to throw in there. They're like the fringe guys, and then after that, it's a bunch of. Yeah, I would say Shady is the top of that class, where I would put him over guys like Edelman and Todd Gurley and a few Jarrell Casey, Geno Atkins, whatever. I agree, and as much as I would love to see him in next year, and I will defend my boy to the death over certain Packers, Colts, and Jets fans next to me, I do understand that, unfortunately, the way these things usually go, like today I watched like Eric Allen get in. Got one Defensive Player of the Year in his career. Multiple Pro Bowls, was arguably one of the best corners of the decade in the 90s. It took him a decade to get into the Hall of Fame. I understand this is not a perfect science, and there is a backlog of guys getting in. So, in reality, I understand he's probably not going to get in first ballot. I will defend him as devil's advocate because he's one of my favorite players of all time. But I think him versus Frank Gore is an interesting conversation because Frank Gore basically just played forever. And he just was a yards eater, whereas where McCoy, with what his style of play was when he was at his best, was a far superior running back. So McCoy's best was way better than Gore's best, but Gore was at his best for longer because his style is more sustainable. But if we're really going to it, there's about 3 or 4 guys who are going in next year. Like, put your money on the table. It's happening. The rest are kind of a toss-up. But yeah, that's the way I generally look at it.
Well, when you look at McCoy, you got to go postseason, right? LeSean McCoy, any Hall of Famer is postseason. You go to Eli Manning, he won Super Bowls. He had big plays in Super Bowls. LeSean McCoy had 1 rushing touchdown in the playoffs in his whole career. He won 2 Super Bowls as RB2 or RB3 on the team. So, yes.
Are we really going to say that? Because there's been multiple guys in the Hall of Fame who really never made the playoffs their entire career, where they were just great in the regular season. They just unfortunately were bad teams. Whereas the
Super
problem,
Bowls,
the
but
problem
it's
is
not
with
playoff production.
So you can't. So the thing is, running back. It's not where. It's not like a position where quarterback where you basically have to say, "Hey, listen." They went on. Their quarterback is the primary position in football, right? Yep. So football. There's this argument right now for certain quarterbacks who just won a Super Bowl MVP where wins are not a QB stat. I want to argue that because without a decent quarterback, and Vince, you can attest to this when you guys have missed quarterbacks, whether it be Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, DJ losing Andrew Luck, Matt, every single guy who's taken a snap for you guys since 2000.
Since 1968.
Yeah. And myself minus Foles, Vic, or Hurts, or McNabb since 2000. It's not sustainable without a good quarterback play. Like we've Lions fans backstage right now who could tell us without Jared Goff, the Lions quarterback scenario is not great. Minus Matthew Stafford staying barely functional with all the injuries. I'll say it like this: with a running back, I think you can take. He only unfortunately, and this isn't to anything his chagrin, because even when they weren't making the playoffs with Philadelphia or Buffalo, he was still putting up his best seasons. Unfortunately, some of his quarterback play when he was putting up those seasons was not substantial. One of his best seasons of his career was 2011, where the Eagles finished 8-8, and he was basically their only hope on offense because Michael Vick could barely stay healthy. They had Vince Young playing half the season.
That was a dream team, though.
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started on that quote. My big point is with this is that if Gore played the same amount of seasons as McCoy, where Gore just kept playing because he basically just runs straight, lowers his shoulder, and moves. That was half of his game. Even though I love Frank Gore as a Miami Hurricane, I have the utmost respect for him as an Iron Man, a journeyman, as a running back. Why I think McCoy has just as much right to be in as him is McCoy did it, and he played a more exciting game in McCoy's best, whether that was only from 2010 to, I'd say, 2017 with the Bills?
Something that his snow game with the Bills is pretty
7
good, so.
years of being. He's also an all-decade team, a two-time All-Pro, five-time Pro Bowler, led the league in rushing twice. In the 2010s, Shady is, if not the best, one of the best running backs in the league, and that should say something for his Hall of Fame credentials over a guy who will make it in Frank Gore. But he was always the fifth or sixth best running back at best in the league. But he always put up the consistent numbers for, 2005, 2006 he started his career and went all the way until 2021 and was consistent.
Which is incredible with those knee injuries he had coming out in the first place. He had no business
No,
playing
I
1 year,
understand
let alone
that,
2
but you
decades.
have to understand from my perspective here, where it's like, Frank Gore was consistently good, but Shady was 8 years of incredible.
No, not 8 years of incredible. He was 2 years a bad year, 2 years a bad year, and 2 years and a bad year over a 9-year period. He did not have 3 consistently good years. He has, of his season, 50% of his seasons were over 1,000 yards. Two of those 6 that he had over 1,000 yards, he was over by less than 100 yards. In the years where he did not go over 1,000 yards, he averages 650 total yards. And that's me being generous with an average. So half of his career, he's 1,000 plus. The other half of his career is 650. And that ranges from the beginning of his career to the middle of his career to the end of his career. As a consistent player, you just talked about Frank Gore's consistency. That should mean more than a player who is a 2-year wonder, a break, a 2-year wonder, a break, and a 2-year wonder.
I hear in my head 6 amazing years and 3 bad years, or 3 okay years at best. That's what I hear when you say that.
I think the positive with Shady is the receiving as well.
Absolutely.
So you got to look at all purpose and not just rushing stuff when you're talking about Shady. He had 9 seasons of 800 plus all purpose yards.
All purpose, yeah.
So I would have thought that would have been more 1,000-yard all purpose seasons. Honestly, I would have thought there was more of that than there is. So he had 9 seasons though where he was productive, good, and he had moments in those 9 seasons that were elite even at times. He's just one of those players that's on that verge of Hall of Fame. He's definitely very good, right? We talk about a lot of players there in that Hall of very good. So would he make it in on a year where maybe there's a down year? Sure, maybe, but
Which there will be down years coming.
Yeah.
As we know from the drafts we've had in the recent decades.
yeah,
There are a lot of down years coming up in the very near future for potential Hall of Famers. That's always a possibility. I do want to point out, Jared, your whole conversation around 3 or 4 potential potentials, you did not ever mention Jason Witten. Maybe one of the all-time best tight ends.
I was going to leave that one there because I think it goes without saying he is a top 5 tight end of all time. And that is my mistake for not mentioning my initial thing. But we talked about it today. Matt can even attest this. We were filming content outside. We were picking all-time great teams. When I was gifted to the Cowboys multiple times, I was like Jason Witten, a tight end, because I consider him a top 10 tight end all time. He definitely deserves to go as a first ballot Hall of Famer, if not second ballot. He is responsible to a lot of the nightmares I had as a kid, as an Eagles fan, watching this kid get his noggin ripped off by Brian Dawkins or Quentin Michael, and then running 60 yards down the field with no helmet on. To me, that's the image of an ultimate Iron Man. And listen, he may not have been the fastest guy on the field or the most athletic, but he was a pain in the arse for a lot of years with Dallas, and he was consistently amazing. Not consistently good, consistently amazing at the tight end position. And, Jerry Jones in that aspect is, blind squirrel that gets a nut. He was that nut as a tight end. So I genuinely think Jason Witten, he was consistently good and consistently great. I think he is going to go in with a Brees, with a Larry Fitz. Now, with the other guys, they are fringe, and I apologize for not putting Jason Witten in before.
Well, no, the reason why I asked is because we just saw Antonio Gibson, who would, as far as a tight end goes, is the all-time leading touchdowner in a season. Period. Nobody's come close. Well, George Kittle, I guess, came close once.
Well, that's the deal. We're getting to that stage now where the tight ends that are going to be eligible are only going to get better stat-wise.
And that's the crazy thing, right?
Gates and Gonzalez were the pioneers.
Yeah.
And this is why with Jason Witten, I wanted to actually come back to this question for everybody, because you all mentioned him in some way, shape, or form. And Jared, you didn't, and that's why.
That was a mental block omission. That wasn't anything else.
It gives me a perfect segue. That's
Yeah.
why. Do you think Jason Witten has the best potential to be the third guy on this ballot? Because I think we're all safe to say first ballot, Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald. I hope we're all in agreement on that. I know everybody said they were, but just for the sake of clarity, if it's not Jason Witten, who is the third best option for being that guy?
Phillip Rivers.
I'd still put in Jason Witten over Phillip Rivers.
Oh, I would too.
Okay, so Jason Witten, and then if it's not Jason, Phillip.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, actually.
Matt?
I guess you'd say Frank Gore.
Frank Gore, okay. DJ?
I guess I'll say Phillip Rivers too. I feel like there's those two at the top, the guaranteed first ballots. Jason wins that one tier below where it's like, okay, maybe second ballot because he's still second all time with tight end numbers. So he's right there. He's a fringe. Then it's everybody else, in my opinion, where we'll see. So I'll say Phillip Rivers too because he is still like 7th or 8th in all-time passing yards. So I think he's still in that category despite not having the postseason success that is attributed with quarterbacks.
Right.
So we'll say Phillip Rivers, I suppose, but Frank Gore's also right there. He is like, 8th in rushing yards all time? Something like that. So
My thing, I guess, is so I'm trying to word this. Jeez, my guy. Every time I talk, there's all audio issues because whatever he's doing. I'm trying to word this correctly. So if Eli Manning didn't get in first ballot and he's got the franchise record that he has with the two Super Bowls in the playoffs against one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever grace the football field, and the postseason performance that he's known for compared to the regular season, do we put Phillip Rivers possibly in the first ballot category when Eli Manning didn't get in first round? Phillip Rivers has all the franchise records and everything too, but he doesn't have the postseason performance, whereas Eli Manning may not have the most compelling regular season stats, but what a postseason performer and the 2 Super Bowls against Tom Brady he's got.
One thing Phillip Rivers has on his side is he is the most gangster quarterback to ever play, playing on a torn ACL after tearing it 7 days
they don't make him like
against
that
them.
anymore.
So if we're going to include that, he gets in for sure if we include gangster.
He's an
points.
all-time trash talker, too. You can't forget that.
Yes.
Here's the deal. When you're looking at Hall of Fame, one of the things you're looking for is all-time, right? So you brought up Jason Witten, second all-time in receiving yards among tight ends. That's Hall of Fame worthy. You look at Phillip Rivers, he's 6th all-time in passing yards and touchdowns. 6th all-time. I know the offenses have changed and all that kind of stuff, but that is where you look at Eli. Eli had great playoff moments, great Super Bowl moments. Phillip had the consistency that we talked about earlier. He's the 6th all-time.
I know where this is about to go, but Jared, go ahead.
We look at who he played with, and we realize we talk about the offenses. He played in a run-dominant offense almost his entire career, and he still put up ridiculous numbers. Yes, it was with one of the greatest running backs of our generation, LaDainian Tomlinson,
One of the greatest tight ends.
and one of the greatest tight ends, Antonio Gates. But here's the thing, is that this dude consistently put up great numbers, and we were talking about this today, Matt. We had trouble remembering wide receivers that he had.
Yeah.
I was going to Vincent Jackson and Eddie Royal. That's where I was pulling guys from.
Yeah.
So I think
Johnson. Stevie Johnson was like another random.
he played on the Chargers.
For
That
like
should-
2 years.
That should tell you.
But that was post Stevie Johnson.
Yes, not
Stevie
post
Johnson.
like what he was his best at in the Bills.
Malcolm Floyd, Keenan McCardle, late
Keenan
career.
McCardle, really?
Late career.
Wow, we're
Yeah,
pulling
Keenan
real
Allen,
But you
deep.
think like
Keenan
Chargers
Allen for
receivers,
sure.
you think
Yeah.
Keenan Allen, yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Now,
so
And Gates.
Here's my question about Phillip Rivers. Because Vince, you touched on this about Shady. Playoffs matter. Does it mean anything that Phillip Rivers couldn't get over the hump? But we've seen 2 of the 3 of that trio get in. Does it mean the same for Phillip?
One of the things we like to do is make sure players know their failures. We've done this in every sport and every Hall of Fame out there, right? We don't want to reward this guy because of this thing, whatever it is. If you were to ask Phillip Rivers, are you aware that you failed in the playoffs? No doubt. He gets it. He understands. So does it matter? It does. But again, when you look at the grand, I mean, I always go back to Dan Marino on this one, right? Well, you know, he doesn't have the Super Bowl to win. And so you look at that and you go, okay, well, was Dan Marino one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? Yes. Does he realize that he never won a Super Bowl? Yeah. And Phillip Rivers is the same way. Now, I would put him below Dan Marino, but still, I think it's in that same category of he's clearly one of the best that we watch play at quarterback. He was no doubt fun to watch at quarterback as well. And at least you either hated him or you loved him, but nonetheless.
Worst throwing motion I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
would we also say this though? Like Marino and Rivers are 2 animals of the same school.
Yeah.
Where I think they're both elite talented quarterbacks who just couldn't get over the hump, but their stats are there to get them in the hall. So in that aspect, I think if we're gonna take the 4, it's gonna be Brees. It's gonna be, and by the way, Drew Brees is a onside kick and a Tracy Porter pick 6 from having 0 Super Bowls right now. So let's not.
He's also a couple penalties away from having himself a couple more Super Bowls.
I know.
Yes.
So like, there's a lot of coin flips, and the same thing with Phillip Rivers is a couple of blown coverages from being the Patriots and probably steamrolling his way to the 07 Super Bowl. So or maybe it was 08, 06, whatever the team that Marty Schottenheimer got fired. Whatever, it does not matter at this point. But what I'm saying is that Marino and Rivers are both in that category of they could not get it done, but their stats and their accomplishments in the regular season are so good, you have to give it its acknowledgement. Where, yes, wins and losses and playoff success are more of a quarterback stat than any other position, but theirs are so good you have to acknowledge that, hey, listen, this is Hall of Fame worthy. And as much as we make fun of Phillip Rivers for his 8,000 kids or the fact that, he
9,000 kids
has never cursed once on camera, all this other stuff, right?
I don't think a man's ever cursed.
Yeah, he's a bolo
Doggone it.
tie,
Yeah.
he's a bolo
many
tie,
compliments.
non-cursing good old boy.
I like
and it's
him.
amazing, right? So here's the thing: is he's also one of the best characters I got to watch in football. I think, and we talk about Eli Manning, right? I think Eli Manning will get in. If it's not this year, it is the year after. Eli Manning's biggest problem, Vince, is you should have good regular season success regardless of your playoff success.
Yeah.
So we talked about Shady and Frank Gore, right? And this is they both had good regular season numbers, but not it could even go back as far as the guy whose jersey Matt's wearing. Joe Namath had actually worse regular season numbers than most quarterbacks, but he had one of the greatest postseason moments of all time, and was good enough back then to get his name in the Hall of Fame. I think now we have to realize that to start with how many people are going into the Hall of Fame, I think an establishment to get in a first or second ballot is you have to be great in the regular season. Now, what you do after that makes even more of a case for you to be in the Hall of Fame. If you're top 6 in any primary stat at your position, especially passing yards which is one of the most, I believe, what second most valued stat for quarterbacks, besides obviously touchdowns, or really individual stats. That says more than anything he deserves to be a Hall of Famer. You can't tell me the sixth best passer of all time, who didn't play more than, 16, 17 years he played total?
Played like 18, I think.
18 still. But, he played under 20 years. He still was in top 6. That deserves to be rewarded with a first ballot bid. That's, I guess, the wrapping on the boat of my take that took, 5 minutes, 10, 11, whatever.
I want to say something
And
that
one
you
busted
just
mic.
pointed out, and it makes me wonder what your guys' opinions are on this guy, because you haven't brought him up yet. Not a single one of you have brought this man up yet. First tight end to ever post 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Greg Olson. We're talking about consistent, a regular season champion, has a great story, which does matter for voters.
Yeah.
Has won Walter Payton Man of the Year how many times and been nominated twice as many. He's a multi-All-Pro teams. He's also been a multi-time Pro Bowler. And, even though they didn't win, made a Super Bowl appearance. You're talking about one of the all-time best, top 6 potentially in his position. I don't have the stat in front of me, but I do believe we just drew a line at top 6 with Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
We have Jason Witten in this class. We just had Antonio Gates. We have a lot of great tight ends coming up soon. Is Greg Olson the guy that we set the standard for, as he is the bare minimum, or should he exceedingly be in the Hall of Fame in the Hall of Fame conversation? Should he be a guy? Maybe not this ballot, but maybe the second ballot, third ballot that gets in. But he sets that standard for where we draw a line at tight ends, minimum, getting in going forward. That's my question to you guys, and I want you to think about that, because it's a wild thought when you talk about these players, because Greg Olson people forget about.
Well, he's definitely going to get in. Whether it's first ballot, I don't know, but whether it's next year or the year after, he's definitely going to get in. He ranks 7th all time in receiving yards and receptions, with 742 receptions for 8,600 yards. Like you said, first tight end for 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He is the all-time leader in receiving yards and receptions, and 100-yard receiving games for a tight end for the Panthers. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time second-team All-Pro, and he ranks overall, I believe, in somewhere in the top 10. Some say 5, but in the top 10 all time. So I don't think it's really a question as to whether or not he is a Hall of Famer. I think it's just a question as to whether or not it's this year or next year or the year after.
And we all also forgetting there's another guy who's neck and neck with him in almost every stat. 2 guys, actually. One guy is neck and neck with him with receiving yards, but has less receptions and way more touchdowns and has 2 rings. And he'll be on the ballot in 2 years, Rob Gronkowski?
Gronk, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and then that's a no-doubter. But here's the thing. We also have Vernon Davis, who I believe is either on the ballot this year or the year after. He's another one where you have to look at this. I think my biggest issue with Olsen is why he was last year's class, correct? Or was he this year's first? Because he wasn't.
His last year was in 2020, so yeah, this would be his first year. 2025.
Okay, because I looked on CBS Sports to reaffirm myself with the class of next year. I didn't see. So yeah, I wasn't for the 2026 coming up because this would be a 6th year.
2024 is his first. Sorry, it's 4 years.
Yeah, so
4 or 5.
So my biggest issue with Olsen, and maybe this is it, he was a volume catcher of the ball, almost, but he was a more athletic version of what I look at like a Zach Ertz, what we have now in the league, where he's a volume catcher of the football at the tight end position, which is great. It's a new part of this formation in this league. But you look at the 6 guys ahead of him, they're game breakers. They are a different breed. Yeah. Whereas with Olsen was a good secondary piece in the offense. Those two Panthers teams, yes, he was a primary. But you look at those 7 guys ahead of him, those guys are the best weapons of the team by a mile. It's not even close. Even Falcons, Tony Gonzalez was still a primary guy over a younger Julio Jones.
DJ, I want to get your thoughts on this because we have Jason Witten and Greg Olson as perfect examples of 2 guys that, if you look at their just pure physical abilities, neither one stands out. but their ability to get open, catch the ball, score touchdowns, get their team advanced, there's no better two tight ends in my lifetime that could do everything other than scoring, which is still Antonio Gates' title in my eyes. There's been no two tight ends that could do what Jason Witten and Greg Olson have done. How do you feel about Greg Olson? If he's on another team, is he a surefire Hall of Famer first ballot, or are you with Matt, or are you thinking maybe even this is even a lower?
This is a rich tapestry because you can't fully compare numbers because it's easy to be sixth when tight ends just started getting the ball in the last 15, 20 years comparatively. So numbers are going to be inflated out the wazoo. So it's the best way I think to do is also to compare them amongst their contemporaries while they were playing. You look at Greg Olson, he was always a Pro Bowler, couple All-Pros, but how often was he a top 2 or 3 tight end at his time? Had his moments. He was very good, obviously. No, so I think he's still in that same class of Hall of extremely elite, but if we're going Hall of Fame first ballot, think about who goes first ballot. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana. That feels like that should be an elite category considering 5 people go in every year. How many people play in the NFL each given year? 1,000, give or take, especially with injuries. It's really, when we're talking first ballot, that's why I say Drew Brees. We know how he redefined passing game altogether. Larry Fitzgerald, we don't need to say anything about Larry Fitzgerald. Like, that speaks for itself. There's a rich tapestry. It has to be what you, sometimes it's not just numbers, it's what you see. Any given Sunday, every Sunday we saw Larry Fitzgerald's like, oh boy, that defense is in for a hell of a ride. Here we go. So I think there's a little bit that goes into it. Same with Jason Witten. He's right there. So I think they could be, if someone says they're in the Hall of Fame, one day I'm not going to complain about it. When I think first ballot, I'm thinking somebody like Rob Gronkowski, who you looked at was the preeminent tight end for when he was healthy for so long. So that's my thought is you have to, same with Drew Brees was right there. He was always there with Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers. He is preeminently at the top. Philip Rivers is just a touch below them.
And at some points, he was the best.
Plenty of times he was. So that's, whereas Philip Rivers was never quite in that category, even though he was so darn elite. And if he gets in, no one's going to hear a complaint from me. Gosh darn it, I'll be all for it. I'll wear a bolo tie.
Greg Olson, our eyes deceive us. He was a Pro Bowler 3 times. He was never a first team All NFL player.
Second, how many times?
He's never led in any tight end category in a season. Is he good? Yes. If he's in the Hall of Fame, will I complain about it? No. He's got a great story, great heart. The Walter Payton Man of the Year stuff, that's got to count for something too. He carried the shield well for the NFL, and he was very, very good. But again, he was much more consistent and longer than Jimmy Graham. But in Jimmy Graham's peak, Greg Olson wasn't better than Jimmy Graham.
Fair.
And so he's not better than Jimmy Witten either. Not better than Gronk. Not better than those guys. So if he makes it in, I won't complain about it. But our eyes tell us Greg Olson was one of the greatest of all times. Everything else tells us, he was fun to watch.
Hall of very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is perfect because I'm glad you said those words because this is the same issue we just talked about with Frank Gore. Greg Olson is Frank Gore for the tight end position.
Fair.
He is the guy that is, if you look at it, third, fourth of his generation. His generation is the first real tight end generation. We saw it. Look, if you look in the Hall of Fame right now, there are guys statistically. You mentioned Joe Namath earlier. I think Joe deserves it. But how many guys from that generation as a quarterback deserve to be in the Hall of Fame still today when you consider where that quarterback position has become, right? It looks a lot worse for some of these statistics. If you look at Greg Olson today and compare him to Travis Kelce, George Kittle, it's not going to look great. I think that's safe to say. But if you take his generation into account, he is playing with the first 4 all-time great tight ends.
Yeah.
And that takes up both your first team and your second team spots every year. That also takes up your AFC and NFC Pro Bowl positions. So this is the way I run into the rub with him every time. Because I'm like you guys. I think my eyes deceive me at times. But I also think he was a prisoner to where he played. Between Chicago and Carolina, at the 2 times he was there, let's not get ourselves. They were not pass-heavy teams. Nor were they ever pass-heavy teams. Chicago, we know their history with passing quarterbacks. That doesn't exist. Jay Cutler, shout out Zach Heilman, friend of the company. Jay Cutler, all-time passing leader in the Bears history.
Smoking Jay.
So that should tell you what you need to know about that team's passing history. And then on the other flip side, Panthers, James Malone, Cam Newton are his quarterbacks. Jimmy Clausen as well. I struggle with him. I struggle with Frank Gore. I struggle with Jason Witten. I do think Jason deserves it more than the other two by nature of where he played and what he did for that team and carried them through some really weird times. I do have to ask, though, offensive lineman, as an offensive line guy, you have two linemen on here. Both happen to be Steelers. One never won a ring. I do believe DeCastro has a ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do either who had played for a franchise known for putting offensive linemen into the Hall of Fame, do either Marquise Pouncey or David DeCastro deserve a first or second ballot Hall of Fame induction?
I think third or fourth for Marquise. Because I think at one point he was, before obviously like you had like the new generation of centers like the Travis Fredericks and the Jason Kelce's of the world. He was that premier center for a year or two. The problem is that we're now seeing he was the beginning of the tip of the spear of the new era of centers where they're athletic freaks and they're able to pick up zone blocking schemes and able to do all these crazy things. He was one of the pioneers. And, you know, we talked about it when Kelce retired. We're probably going to talk about this in about 3 or 4 years when Jason Kelce's up. And, I mean, I'll bang the drum for him to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer, and the Super Bowl ring and the multiple All-Pro speak for themselves. I think Pouncey has a better chance than DeCastro. But, yes, DeCastro does not have – DeCastro has a title. Pouncey does not. And I don't know. They're both fringe guys to me. I think they both have a better shot than Frank Gore, but not – not over like a guy like Olsen or Witten or Larry Fitz or Rivers or Brees.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them have a better shot than Frank Gore, with Frank Gore being the third leading rusher in the NFL with 16,000 rushing yards. But I will say that I think if anything, I don't think Marquise Pouncey or David DeCastro are first or second ballot Hall of Famers. I think if they get in, and it might take, like Jared said, 3 or 4 ballots or so. I think one major thing that could hinder their chances at making it within the first 2 ballots is longevity. Marquise Pouncey played for 11 years. He played at a high level for 11 years. Was a very good center. But at the same time, you know, I think longevity plays a role in that. And David DeCastro as well, 9 seasons in the NFL. I think lack of longevity in the NFL, if Marquise Pouncey played a couple more years, maybe we'd be talking a little differently. If DeCastro, instead of 9, had maybe 13 or 14 years, I think we would be talking a little differently. But I think, for me, I think longevity is going to keep them from the first at least 2 ballots or so.
Yeah, Pouncey played 134 games.
Yep.
And, you know, Terrell Davis is always the guy we look at when you talk about longevity, and he was so great and all this kind of stuff. But talking about a center, 134 games, good. That whole unit was good, you know, in that run for the Steelers, too. He had the injury issues, so he was around for 11 years, 9 full seasons. Yeah, to me, it's, again, if he makes it, will I be upset? No. But I don't know. You look at some of the offensive linemen in the Hall of Fame, and they stand out. It seems like a lot more than Marquise Pouncey and DeCastro. Man, it's hard because you don't have the stats. You get the games played, longevity is a big part of it, and the All-Pros and the Pro Bowls and all that kind of stuff.
I think you have to evaluate like the passing yards and the rushing yards behind them. I think that's the way you have to look at like centers. Like we're going to talk about. So I think this kind of plays into it, Vince, a little bit. Like I will rescind my comment. I think Frank Gore gets in over these two. But my biggest issue is you talking about like what stats do you track off, and only 134 games for Pouncey. Dude, it took me a second to remember who David DeCastro was. That's not good. And I am a football nerd, every extension of the word. So how am I supposed to put that guy in the Hall of Fame? It's not like he was playing in the 70s and was an elite talent that he just kind of got passed away because of how many guys were playing there. There's a lot better centers and guards and tackles that are coming out in the next 5 to 10 years, back to back to back to back. So maybe they don't. Maybe they're like Eric Allen. They get in like 20 years after they're out of the league. I don't know. It's a weird kind of weird place to be in right now. I think this is a weak offensive line class to begin with. So
I think you got to up those LB's knowledge, is what it is. You just need to up that knowledge of the back guys.
Well, I was waiting for he never said the names, but you got all these Eagles linemen that are getting ready
he's
to retire, and they're coming.
I got the best right tackle of our generation who's about to retire in a year
Hey, I'm
going
to compliment you, so stop talking, or else it's going to lose
All right,
it.
well, in that case, we're just making fun of it.
All right, no.
know, I appreciate you not saying Kelsey's name in this conversation. His time will come.
here, guys.
Thank you for holding up on that. All right, DJ. Sorry, we're hogging the mic.
Are either one of those guys better than Jeff Saturday, would you say?
No.
Even in the
No.
same category?
Saturday's been up for a while now, right?
He's been eligible for almost a decade, but it's
Oh, hell no. We got to put Saturday in over
He's got
over Mike
two-time All-Pro and six-time Pro Bowler, and we
Yeah.
all already know. As soon as I said his name, that's the end of that discussion.
Yeah, I'll go to bat for Jeff Saturday, even though he's the
And
worst coach in history.
he's been eligible for almost a decade.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm trying to say is Hall of Fame. It shouldn't just be there's Hall of very very good and Hall of Fame.
This plays a good point, DJ.
And only 4 or 5 people get in every year. This is 16 eligible
Well, I
guys.
mean,
like,
unless
yeah.
unless
These are
it's-
the most likely of
Unless
the
it's
These are the
2020,
first time
where like we
eligibles,
were
too.
looking today because I forgot how many were in the 2020 class. That was a one weird class. It was like 30 people got in, but yeah, you have to look at the backlog of guys who didn't make the first, second, or third, or fourth cut. Like Jeff Saturday definitely was the beginning of them. I mean, I think this is where where guys like the Pouncey brothers who didn't play long enough. You said 134 games. That ain't jack, man. Like
Yeah.
that's
It's
nothing.
11 seasons. It's
Yeah.
11 seasons plus playoffs is what it is.
Yeah.
But all right, we talked a lot about potentials, right? Let's talk about the flip side of the potential. Let's talk about potential guys that will not receive enough votes to stay on the ballot. I'm going to give you 5 names of first-time eligible because we see first-time eligibles get dropped all the time. I'm giving you the 5 most likely that none of you have talked about yet because that makes me think that you guys think they're probably not worthy of that. The problem is if they don't receive enough votes, they don't stay on the ballot. All right. Number 1, Geno Atkins. Number 2, Steven Gostkowski. Number 3, Todd Gurley. Number 4, Julian Edelman. And number 5, Thomas Davis. Which of the 5 is the most likely to not be on next year's ballot, DJ?
I think all but Julian Edelman are most likely to not be off. These are guys we knew and grew up, so they stick out more to us. They're not guys that stick through the annals of time necessarily. They're all very good. Edelman has the Super Bowl MVP in the ring, so that's a little different. I'm going to go with all 4. I'm taking the other way out. Edelman's the only one likely to be on the ballot. I think
Julian will stay.
I think he has a chance to stay. I think the other 4 will almost assuredly not be. They're awesome players, but like we said, there are so many names that they got to stick through the annals of history, and those guys we grew up thinking were really cool.
Yeah, I think Thomas Davis could stick as well, but Gostkowski, kicker, gone. Atkins, gone. Gurley is the hard one, but again, you go longevity, you compare it to Terrell Davis, just not the same thing. And so, yeah, I think Gurley's probably gone. I think Thomas Davis may stick around though, and Edelman, he's going to continue to lose polish because it's further and further away from Tom Brady, and that's going to hurt him.
Yep.
And you're going to have Gronk come up, so now you're talking about he's getting pushed further and further away from the mind. But I think for this year, Edelman and Thomas Davis stick around.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, I agree I think Edelman will be the one that's going to stay on that ballot going forward. And I know, like I said, he's not the world's greatest, regular season receiver, like stats-wise. But if you look at his postseason performance, obviously he has the Super Bowl rings. He was a Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 53. He is second in postseason receptions with 118, second in postseason receiving yards with 1,400. He holds the record for the most receptions and receiving yards, and also has 6 career 100-yard receiving games in the playoffs, multiple 9+ reception games. Just the postseason records and the stats alone, I think, will give him some life on the ballot. I think he's a Hall of Very Good at the end of the day. I think if he were to ever get in, it's because of those postseason records that he has. But I think that's what could keep him on the ballot going forward.
Okay. Jared, do you have any shockingly revelatory thoughts here, or are you sticking with the Julian Edelman, probably the most likely, maybe Thomas Davis?
I'm not Thomas Davis. Thomas Davis is literally the definition of Hall of Very Good. That is what he is. He was a solid linebacker for a long time, but he was never like top 5 at his position ever. If he was, it was for 1 year max. With Todd Gurley, it's a tragedy. His knees just gave out. That man had more talent than 80% of the running backs that we've seen in the last 3 decades. And I still remember his first couple years in the Rams were just mind-blowing. Edelman, literally, like DJ said, will stay at least this year. But once you said it's the receivers that are coming out of the next couple classes are going to smoke them. Super Bowl MVP, Deion Branch has a Super Bowl MVP. Okay? Name me the guy from the Buccaneers who has a Super Bowl MVP.
Dexter Jackson.
Thank you.
I was like, hang on, give DJ.
I was going to say, I knew it was Dexter Jackson. I was going to see if anybody else could name it. It was kind of a rhetorical question. Could you name the guy from that? We've had obscure MVPs before. Nick Foles is not going to the Hall of Fame. So Super Bowl MVPs are you played the biggest and the biggest
Time
stage.
out. Pause. Nick Foles has a jersey in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so will Julian Edelman. That's fine.
No, I'm just saying. He is actually technically in the Hall of
He
Fame.
is not technically in the Hall of Fame.
He has no
Jersey
bust.
Is in the Hall of Fame.
Gotta
I
have the
know.
bust.
There's a high-low sports
Is
gift card
Edelman-
in the Hall of Fame, so we're in the Hall of
Edelman
Fame.
just not have a jersey right now.
What was the
Edelman is the Eli Manning of receivers.
Yeah.
The problem
I
is he
love
plays
that.
receiver, so
love
he's
that.
not going to get in.
What
I
was the
love that.
receiver that was emergency quarterback for the Broncos that one game?
Yeah, he is a
He has
a
football in the
he
Hall
has a
of
football
Fame.
in the Hall of Fame.
He is technically in the
And
Hall
he
of
had
Fame.
one-
There you go.
Kendall Hill, he'd won 2 completions. Like
Put-
it's not like
Kendall Hill will be on the ballot in about 5 years, and he should be a third ballot.
All I gotta say is I gotta give credence where credence is due. Cody Parkey also has cleats in the Hall of Fame.
double doink, baby.
But yeah, he's more famous for the double doink, not the fact he set the record for points as a kicker as a rookie. All right, guys, we're gonna cut it there because I think we've exhausted this conversation for 2026, and it's still 2025. We don't even really know where the vote is gonna happen here. We do know that none of us are voters, so unfortunately we don't have a say because I feel like we have some pretty good takes on this. But it's true. Like we're running up into a generation that we don't know what's going to happen because we grew up with this generation, so we have a little bit of bias to this generation of players. And it's going to make the difficult decisions when you consider how the older players are ranked against the newer players. And this generation feels like the most change up until this point. All right. All that said, guys, we appreciate you tuning in for this one. We got more content coming from this weekend. Stay tuned. More Fantasy Football Expo content coming from Belly Up Sports. Stay tuned to our YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts for more. Oh, and even that TikTok page. All right, guys. We will see you guys again shortly. Stay tuned for more.